Greetings, health and human enthusiasts, and welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm your trusted guide, Dr. Scott Johnson, and I'm both humbled and thrilled that you've chosen to join me on this fearless pursuit of knowledge and inspiration. My mission is to elevate your well-being naturally, arming you with evidence-based insights, revolutionary breakthroughs, and impactful health tactics. But that's not all. Together, we'll dive deep into the mysterious realms of human existence, unraveling the secrets of what makes us truly thrive. This podcast isn't just about information. It's a catalyst for change. Join me in confidently exploring potent natural solutions, cutting-edge health strategies, and igniting courageous conversations that cultivate meaningful connections and foster empathy for humankind. I'm here to empower you to unleash your extraordinary potential and lead a life jam-packed with boundless health and happiness. So get ready. Your extraordinary journey to boundless health and happiness starts now. Hello everyone, I'm excited about today's episode because we are going to talk about nutrition and underfeeding with someone who has been through it, Brandye Burris. After a lifetime in the entertainment and dance industries struggling to manage her weight, Brandye entered the fitness industry receiving certificates in personal training and multiple group fitness. At the age of 25, she was diagnosed with severe hypoglycemia, but was given no guidance on how to manage this or any treatment other than eat frequent meals by her doctor, which drove her to study nutrition, as a personal condition often does. I can testify to that. After having twins in her late 30s, she realized even more how much a role nutrition plays in muscle gain, fat loss, and of course, overall health. Now she is a certified master personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, certified nutrition consultant, certified holistic health, wellness and life coach, weight loss specialist, and certified sports nutrition coach. So you can see she has a lot of expertise, but as important is a relatable career mom with a personal story that led to her passion. So welcome, Brandye, and thank you for coming on the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here. I'm excited about this topic. I don't even know if I can say enough about the topic, but I'll try to narrow it down.
Yeah, we were talking about this just briefly and how relevant this is, something that I think it really needs to be heard, which is why I'm excited about the topic. So let's jump right into it. An interesting thing I see you share about frequently is the concept of underfeeding. In today's society, that may seem a bit odd because most people are overeating, at least when it comes to how many calories they consume. So can you explain what you mean by underfeeding?
Yes, definitely. So strangely enough, out of my practice, I have seen with at least over 1,000 people that I've coached over the years, oddly enough, there's probably as many people as I can count on my hands that are actually overeating. Most everybody is undereating, which is underfeeding. And what that means is that for their basic caloric needs, for what their body needs to function at an optimal level, most people are dramatically under eating from what they need to function. So it's, and you know, there's this it's counterintuitive in the fact that people think, well, if I'm not at the weight or at the body composition, the shape that I want to be, then I just need to eat less. I need to eat less so I weigh less. And so they keep eating less. But if you extrapolate that, what, at some point you're going to eat nothing? You know, where does that get you? And what happens is that the body biologically fights back. And so we start holding and we start gaining and we start storing because the body needs to survive. And so it's not necessarily we're gaining or our bodies are changing into a shape that we're not wanting because we're overeating. It's really that we're undereating. We're not eating enough energy for the body to use to function at an optimal level.
Yeah, I like what you said because there are a lot of individuals who continually restrict calories over and over again, and I've even had a lot of their healthcare professionals recommend that when they're trying to lose weight, and it does trigger these biological changes in the body that just lead to adaptations like you're mentioning that then make the whole situation worse. And so we're really sabotaging ourselves when we are starving the body and telling it to go into starvation mode.
Yes, absolutely. And, we think back to, our ancestors, our predecessors. We are genetically, it is in our DNA to survive. Because, let's face it, we wouldn't be here if our ancestors didn't survive. We would not be alive. So we are genetically predisposed to survival mode. And, way back, they would go days and days because they had to go hunt and they had to go find the food and they had to get the food back to the village and then go through all the cooking and then repeat the process. So their bodies had this roller coaster effect that's the way the environment forced them to go. And so the body had to store because they would go 3 and 4 days hiking, sleeping barely at all, having to fight to get their food. It was insane. None of us would have survived, I don't think. But, they had to have their bodies set up for this. So the bodies had to store to protect them from the elements, to allow them to do all of this process for the entire village to survive. We don't live in that society now, but our bodies are already set up to prepare for that. And so when we start restricting and underfeeding and not providing enough nutrition for our bodies, it goes, okay, well, here we go again. Let's buckle up, Buttercup, and get ready. And let's start making all these little storage areas so that just in case we're not going to eat enough or not be fed enough, we can still survive.
Right.
And the more we do it, the more we're telling our bodies, well, you're right. I'm going to restrict food. I'm going to keep pulling food back from you. And so our bodies go, well, that's what we thought. And it just continues the process. So the longer that we abuse that, the harder it is for the body to get back into trust mode.
Right. So, of course, connected with that is metabolism. And metabolism is an incredibly complex body function there are literally thousands of pathways in the body that involve metabolism. And all too often people take a narrow view of metabolism and think of it just as processing what they eat and drink. But the reality is that our cells are constantly carrying out thousands of chemical reactions that keep the cell, the tissues, and the organs the cells make up, and the whole body healthy. These chemical reactions are linked in pathways and are collectively known as the cell's metabolism. So what are the risks associated with underfeeding and its impact on metabolism and overall health?
I equate it a lot of times to our phones' low battery modes. Most everybody has smartphones, and you get the battery to a certain point and you have to switch over to low battery mode. But once we get there, the phone's function is to just stay on. But all of the apps and the basic functions start to work a little bit slower. Some of the apps won't load. Some features work, some features don't. Well, our metabolism is very similar in that when we start switching it to low battery mode, which is low intake of food, all of those functions start to slow down. The body can only use so much energy that it's given. It's kind of like the law of conservation of energy. You can't really, energy isn't created or destroyed. It's just recycled, basically. It has to create energy from energy. So if we're not getting enough energy, how is our body going to do all of those cellular functions? How is it going to do all of those things that we need it to do, the heart to beat, the lungs to breathe, the organs to function, if we are not giving it enough fuel? And, one of those things of the underfeeding is, okay, well, you're not giving it enough energy to do these things. Well, when you look at what the body uses on a daily basis of its calories, and it has to beat the heart, well, that's going to take a good 17% of the calories. Has to breathe with the lungs. Well, then if there's not enough left over to divvy out to the other things, that's going to start lessening the abilities to let those things function. So just like you said, with all those cellular structures, it's with, I don't think people really connect that we need our liver to function, we need our kidneys to function, we need all of that tissue to be rebuilt and for it to heal and to stay strong to do all of that stuff. Well, that's what your food is doing to fuel the metabolism, to fuel all of that function. And it's just a matter of understanding that food intake is not just related to the number on that scale. It's related to all of the other things that are going to get you to that point.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say really is that underfeeding is going to affect the entire body, which, and it's not just the body, it's your mind and emotions too. So that kind of goes right into my next question, which is how does chronic underfeeding impact energy levels, cognitive function, and physical performance?
You know, the brain it's the third highest draw from the calories that we take. It's at 17% of how much we eat. And so cognitive function, once you start getting under how much is available in the system, cognitive function is one of the first things, it's the top three. It's one of those first things that start to slow because there's not enough energy to fuel it. You know, there's a certain amount of calories we need just to get up out of bed. Get up out of bed, move from room to room at just the most basic level. Then we start applying all of these other things that we're expecting to do in a day. Go to work, maybe go to the gym, take care of the kids, clean the house, mow the lawn. You know, there's things that we're expecting that also take more energy. But over and over in the long term of underfeeding, the more you're starting to cause damage to all of those tissues that aren't being fed. So we're not just looking at metabolism anymore. We start looking at general health and us leading ourselves into some chronic conditions that necessarily could have at least been put farther back or could have just been avoided altogether because we didn't abuse ourselves by thinking that we just can't eat food.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, the brain function starts to slow down. You don't have as much energy. Most people will go to caffeine and go, well, I just need some caffeine. Actually, you know, sure, but you also need some food. If you're not eating, eat some food. Physical performance, it's one of the things, especially in the fitness industry, that people don't realize that the first thing that's going to break down in the body when there's not enough energy is muscle tissue. It's not stored fat. It takes twice as much energy for the body to break down stored fat than it does muscle tissue. Plus, there's a whole lot more nutrition held in that muscle tissue than there is fat tissue. So the first thing it wants to break down is muscle tissue. So our bodies will actually cannibalize muscle tissue to feed itself, just so that it can have that energy. So if we're not taking it in, well, that workout that we're doing was completely useless because we just lost more muscle tissue than we're actually going to gain. So over and over, it just starts breaking down the body on that respect. And that we're losing muscle tissue, which also can start bleeding into bone density. It just starts going into this, it just expands all the way throughout the body just by worrying about not eating enough. So it just becomes this, you know, general calorie intake should be anywhere around 2,000 to 3,000 calories. Sometimes it can go, depending on age, it can go down to like 1,600. But I'll even see people that are around 1,000 calories a day. And if you look at what the body is going to use out of that 2,000 calories, it's already using about 1,250 for basic function.
Right.
So if you're not eating 1,250, you're eating around that 1,000 calories. Sure, you're 250 in an energy deficit, but how long are you doing that? How long is that going? And how much farther are you willing to shut your metabolism down in order to fuel the body? And how much are you willing to risk in order to do it as well?
Yeah, so we're not only self-sabotaging, we are actually self-digesting, really, causing our tissues to be broken down and used for what the body needs because we're not providing it the feeding that it needs, which is obviously going to have some effects on body composition. So how does underfeeding affect body composition, and what are some of the signs or symptoms that someone may be experiencing this?
So, you know, body composition is defined as, in short, the relationship or the ratio between body fat and muscle tissue that includes bone and lean tissue. So It's really that ratio. So body composition on some level with underfeeding, it helps with body composition. Now I say that only in the fact of the situation is there's been no underfeeding prior. So there's this confusion of, the eat less, move more, weigh less. But that only comes if the body's been fed enough. General public, as we've already mentioned, is underfed. So when we keep underfeeding, most likely and most common, the body starts to gain storage. There's not weight loss happening. Usually other things start happening as far as, there's injuries a little bit more often, sprains and things are happening more common. There is more fatigue. Recovery from workouts and activity is taking much longer. All of these are symptoms of the body's not getting enough nutrition. The injuries are really just because the tissue doesn't have time to rebuild and doesn't have enough strength to be able to maintain all of what we're putting on the body. So some of those are going to be things that start to show up. Illnesses are going to be more frequent, and recovery from those illnesses is going to be much harder. And all of those are happening just because there's not enough nutrition. So with that body composition, sometimes we'll start to see a transition of a loss of pounds, but we may not necessarily see a gain in muscle. When you're in that calorie deficit, the body can create new muscle tissue if everything is really in line with the way it needs to be. The protein intake is up to where it needs to be. The carbohydrates, the fat intake is up to where it needs to be. If all of those factors are there, the body can technically create new muscle tissue in a deficit. It's much harder to do. So we may see some of the numbers on the scale go down, but we're not necessarily going to see the composition change because we're not able to keep up with the weight loss and the muscle gain to switch those numbers in the ratio.
Yeah. In your experience, what are some of the common misconceptions about nutrition when the focus or the goal of that nutrition is to release some weight?
The biggest misconception is the one I've mentioned, the eat less, move more, weigh less. People think they can just get out and we'll go walk and I'll go to the gym and I'll work myself half to death and I should be able to do this. I can lose this weight. And it's completely backwards. With that nutrition not in line, none of that is going to work. And the eat less just doesn't really, it only works if it's completely controlled and all of the factors are in place prior. That's the biggest misconception. I would also say the other big misconception is that losing weight in general really needs to end up being losing stored fat. And I think if the mind would switch to losing fat, that's unnecessary because we still need a certain amount on our body. But if we can lose the unnecessary fat and stop worrying so much about the weight, I think some of these things would kind of take care of themselves because the focus would be different and the factors that are being used to track everything would be looked at differently.
Yeah, I wanted to just, emphasize a couple of things you said because I think they're really important. One is the goal should be to shift fat to muscle, right? That's the goal. But we do need some of that fat because if you lose too much fat, your hormone system is going to go out of balance and you're going to have a lot of other things that you are just not going to be feeling well and operating efficiently. Correct. So it's so important that we do keep an emphasis on maintaining those right ratios, which I think here's the important thing is then let's get a little bit more practical now. What does what role does holistic nutrition play in addressing these underfeeding risks, promoting weight loss, and optimizing your metabolic health?
Well, and holistic is really treating the body as a whole unit. I mean, the body is a whole unit. It works as a machine with many different parts, and each part fuels the other part and supports the other parts. So, spot reducing isn't a thing. And spot treatment isn't a thing. Like you can't treat one thing and not have other things affected. So holistic nutrition really is the entire situation looked as a whole, and we work to fix the whole thing, the whole concept, the whole body, the whole goal. And looking at it, and I think that does kind of piggyback off of, let's look at losing stored fat that's not necessary instead of the number on the scale, because then that does take into consideration, oh great, my bone density has gone up, my muscle tissue has gone up, the extra storage that's not needed is going down, and that just takes everything into a bigger picture that we can really look at as our guide of if we're doing the right things, if we're doing things better for ourselves, if our health, our bottom line health is improving. You know, our body's number one goal is to survive. That's all it wants to do. It doesn't care if it looks good in a swimsuit. It just wants to survive. And, you know, what we can do in order to support that is going to make the body kind of give us that love right back. It starts to function the way that it was designed to function. It starts to give us the results that we're wanting to have. You know, we want to have more energy. We want to be able to experience life with our children and with our families. We want to be able to, you know, travel and take time off. Well, we can't do that if our bodies aren't primed to support all of that. And so when we can kind of treat it as this is a big picture thing, not only a big picture as far as our health is concerned, but this is going to fuel all of that other big picture stuff that we want, then it starts to become a much better and healthier relationship between our mind and our body.
Well, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you discuss the interplay between underfeeding, metabolism, and hormonal regulation in the body?
Yeah. So as you'd already mentioned, you know, hormones are such a big deal, and a lot of times people don't really think of it farther than, you know, when you hit some of those older ages. You don't really think of it earlier, but there's so many more hormones than just progesterone, testosterone, estrogen. There's so many more that are going on in the system. There's insulin, you've got cortisol, you've got serotonin, you have all of these other hormones happening, and they're talking to each other on a constant basis. Even when we're sleeping, they are chatting it up. And the more, in the same way that you had mentioned the cellular processes that are going on, it's the same thing with this hormone production and hormone communication, is that when there's not enough fuel for one to do what it needs to do to support the other one, all of this disruption starts happening. It's similar to the wheels on a car. You know, the car could be in great shape, it's just had its service, you have everything set, gas tank is full, you get one wheel that just blows, and guess what? The rest of it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So it's the same type of thing with all of our hormones going on. You know, a lot of times people will come to me and I say, you've got to have a hormone panel run. Talk to your doctor, have it run. Make sure that all of your base levels are really jiving in the right place where they need to be, because the minute that you start really messing with your intake is the minute you're going to throw all of this off. And when you start improving your intake, you may start improving these bottom line numbers, and it's a great way for you to check and see if you're really doing things for your body the right way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the crosstalk that goes on between hormones, because that hormone system is so tightly regulated that when you have one hormone that starts to go out, the rest of them try and compensate, and pretty soon you have multiple hormones that are just not in the optimum range, and it wreaks havoc on your body. So
yeah, it really does. And you know, people forget insulin, and you know, all of these. And the other thing is that there's all these receptors within the cells that have to kind of, it's like a door, they kind of have to open the door for all of this to get into the cell. And without all of that cellular structure being fed and being nurtured, all of those little doors and those pathways get disrupted as well. So it's not just the base level of these hormones, but it's how the body is able to utilize these hormones that starts getting disrupted when we are underfed.
So what are some practical strategies that individuals can implement to prevent underfeeding and support a healthy metabolism?
There are three favorites that I have. One of them is eat more. Go eat. Go to the party. Go to the birthday party. Have the darn cake. There's nothing wrong with the cake. You know, as long as you're eating some of the other food with it, go ahead and have the charcuterie. Everything's okay. Food is not the enemy. It's our relationship that has become our enemy with food. So eat more. You know, specifically eat more protein. Most are very underfed on protein. And when you can start with protein, I tell my people, have about 3 bites of protein at the beginning of the meal. Then you kind of start a good little process of, now you can have some of the other stuff, but you've started with that protein, and then chances are you're going to finish the protein, and then you'll be full, and so you've left kind of the other stuff out, but you at least got your protein in. So really make sure that protein, around 30 to 40 grams is usually good. About the palm of the hand works per meal. Second thing is always breakfast. And the side eyes I get when I say eat your breakfast is I can't count. I should. I'd be a millionaire if I was paid for every side eye. But breakfast was really, it got the name breakfast to break your nighttime fast.
Right.
And really we get confused that the alarm system and our cup of coffee is what wakes us up in the morning. True, it wakes us up, but that doesn't mean that it sets the metabolism up. It doesn't wake up the metabolism. Food is what wakes up the metabolism in the morning. So if you can get that breakfast in, whatever it may be, even if you start small and then you start to expand with a protein-focused breakfast, it's going to not only get that metabolism going, but it's also going to give you a head start on getting that protein in for the day. And you'll also start noticing a big difference in how you function cognitively, physically, earlier in the morning. People say, I'm not a morning person. Well, most likely you didn't eat. You had coffee. And so, if we can get that breakfast in, it starts this trickle-down effect. Third thing I really like is kind of just looking at your plate. Some people find it very overwhelming to weigh food and to look at all the numbers, and that's okay. It's for some, it's not for others. So if you just take your plate, divide it into 3 portions, make one portion a little bit bigger. That portion can be your protein. The other, fill it with your veggies, fill it with some good healthy fats. And people forget another good healthy fat is just olive oil. You can just drizzle it over food, and that's a great healthy fat. But then you can just use that plate as your guide. And again, you go back to the eat 3 bites of that protein. Then you kind of work your way around, and then you should be pretty good by the end of it.
Great. Those are all practical tips, and I like the emphasis on protein because I agree there has been just we are too carb focused right now.
Yes.
Where most of our meals are so heavy carb, and then we don't get enough room for our important proteins.
Right.
How do factors like stress and sleep and other maybe environmental influences contribute to underfeeding risks?
A lot of times when people are tired, stress also is a little bit higher. Just because you're tired, you can't really handle some of those stresses as easily. But all of those start to trigger a bunch of hormone responses, like we've already discussed. But the other thing it does is it starts to confuse us in the fact that we think we either need to eat more, which usually leads towards the carbs. People will go and grab the package of Oreos before they'll go grab, I mean, yes, it doesn't sound as glamorous to take some chicken and dip it in some hummus, but, the tendency is to just go grab those high carb, calorie dense foods because they're easy, quick grab, done. So a lot of times the sleep, the lack of sleep and everything starts to lead us into where we start making bad choices with foods. Other thing it starts doing is we start to get a little bit manic, and we get busy, we get focused on what we need to do, stress goes up, and now here we go, fast forward 8 hours, and we've just completely forgotten to eat and drink. So, and then we're stuck, and then you're ravished, and all you want to do is clean out the pantry, and then here come those bad decisions again. So, a lot of times it is hard if you're a career parent and you have multiple kids, trying to remember to get sleep of that 8 hours sometimes just seems unrealistic. But it comes down to, even 30 minutes before you would normally go to bed. 30 minutes. It's not that big of a chunk of your day, but you can just lay down 30 minutes earlier. And then you can start to work your way up, because then you can really start letting the body get to that recuperation, to the recovery. It needs that time to not only recover, but then prepare for what's coming the next day.
Yeah, sure. Are there certain populations or demographics that are more vulnerable to underfeeding related issues?
I do think women take the heat on this one. Mainly just because we have all these physical changes, especially after children, that go, And we've always had in our heads that we have to look a certain way to be beautiful, to be glamorous, to be desired, to be respected. And now I think with current marketing ideas, some of that's getting a little bit better because in fashion, they're celebrating all different body types. But people have an idea of the way they want to look and the way they feel their best. So no matter what picture is going to be put in front of that person, if they don't feel confident in what they see in the mirror, they're still not going to feel happy with the way they look. So I do think women take the heat of this just because we experience so many physical changes throughout our lives that it hits us pretty hard. And we're told eat less. You know, it's not polite. If you were ever in etiquette, it's not polite to finish all the food on your plate. You need to leave some of it. And you know, and it's always been focused on, you know, making sure that you're not having an extra hors d'oeuvre, or you know, and you know, if you're going to have the cake, you need to eat the small piece with less, and it's always thrown at us.
Yeah.
And so I do think women do take that heat. Not that men don't, but I think it ends up hitting us harder with those physical changes. And, you know, I think it's, even in society, when we're going to events and we're going to parties and we're out and about, I think there's a taboo on those that are living a healthy lifestyle and have health goals, in the fact that, well, you look fine the way you are. Why won't you do? But there's not it's health. It's not necessarily shape and look. It's about overall health. And I think in a way to support that is at every event that there are options available. So there's not just pizza that's purchased. There might be pizza that's there because it is cheap and it's easy to grab, but maybe there's also some salads, and then maybe there's also, you know, a veggie tray. And it's not a problem for people to have whatever they want. It's not looked at with a side eye. It's, you can have a little bit of all of it. But there's not just the one item there that people have to choose.
Yeah, I like to tell people it's okay to have the cake at the birthday party. You just can't remember when the last time you had cake was, because if you're going to go to a birthday party every day and eat cake, then it becomes problematic.
Then it's a problem. Anything in excess is a problem. I mean, we can all understand how that works. And so, you know, it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just go ahead and have it when you need to and when you want to. But you know that the rest of your days, you're always eating right in line with your health goals.
Yeah.
So that you have that balance between life and health. They really do come together.
Yeah. So how can practitioners effectively assess and address underfeeding risks within a holistic nutrition framework, considering individual differences in lifestyle factors?
One of the things, and again, a lot don't like it, but once people start it and do it, they go, oh, there's a lot of little epiphany moments that happen. I'm a big advocate of tracking food, even if it's just for 5 days. So even with people that I work with, I need to see what they do intuitively. What is it that you're doing for 5 days? Just track it. You put the time in, you just put in what you eat. Doesn't matter, you're not looking at goals, you're just putting it in. And a lot of times, those people will turn around and go, oh, I didn't realize I really wasn't eating enough. Right. Oh, I didn't realize I'm not drinking anywhere near enough water. Right. A lot of those things happen because generally people are pretty smart. It's just they don't really know what to listen to and what to follow. So,
bringing some awareness to what they're doing.
Absolutely. And then they have to be aware also because they're plugging it in. And then they see it in black and white. There's something different about seeing it in black and white. Well, the other thing is, you know, scope of practice. You know, we don't go to the cardiologist to have our teeth cleaned. And, you know, we really
Hopefully
go
not.
to... Let's hope not, yeah. So I hope we don't go to the dentist for the cardiology appointment. But, you know, it's really stepping into that scope. And with children, everybody says it takes a village to raise kids. And that doesn't really stop. It keeps going even into our adulthood. It takes a village for us to really take care of ourselves. And you have that village of those professionals that really know. And those professionals can pass the torch. Hey, you need to go and see this person because this is not within my expertise. So I know this person that does X, Y, and Z. And moving within those scopes of practice, a lot of practitioners are pretty good about it, but I think sometimes there's that pressure of I need to at least give an answer. And I think society thinks they need to get that answer. But you can't. You can't go to someone where their specialty is this and you're asking this. Go to those people with those specialties, especially in the nutrition industry, which is growing. The information that they're coming out with right now is nonstop. It's almost daily of the new things that they're finding, the new research and the new studies. And it's moving so fast that you really have to find those people that are staying on the up and up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that what you said is so true, because things that I was taught 10, 20 years ago are been flipped upside down now. They're the exact opposite. And so if you're not keeping up on what nutrition science and research is saying, then you're going to continue to share the outdated information that probably is not healthful.
Right. You know, there was the whole time in the 90s that it was supposed to, everything was fat free, and we see how that turned out. You know, and it's, you know, and that's just continuing to happen. And what's really cool in the nutrition field is that, you know, 20 years ago, they did these 10-year studies. Well, that information came out 10 years ago, and now they've expanded on that information, and now they have more stuff coming out. And it's just, it's going so fast, which is great. It's great for all of us to be living during this time, but it's a lot to keep up with. And the general public is overwhelmed. And because there's information from all these sources, and half of it's just garbage. But then you have to cherry pick where that good stuff is coming from, and it's really hard to find.
Yeah.
So I think really for people to just understand where they can pass that torch to send somebody where they can get, or at least communicate with somebody who can provide that insight and information is important.
Right. Well, I really appreciate this discussion and learning more about the dangers of underfeeding and some tips and strategies to truly nourish the body and maintain a healthy metabolism. So thank you so much for being on the podcast and taking time to share this important information with us.
Oh, I thank you so much. It's truly a blessing and an honor to have been here today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for investing your precious time with us today. I trust you've uncovered valuable insights to elevate your health and enhance your quality of life. If you're hungry for more evidence-based wisdom to transform your well-being, I invite you to check out my 20-plus books, all waiting to be explored on my website, authorscott.com. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your knowledge. Please share, like, and subscribe to be part of the movement revolutionizing lives. In a world drowning in noise and endless information, your share can be the beacon that guides others to a better life. Together, let's make a difference by amplifying the life-changing knowledge you've gained today. Until next time, here's to your journey to boundless health and unbridled happiness.